Hi, I'm Luke, and today I'm excited to share joint work with Amanda Coston, Stephen Wu, and Ken Holstein titled Groundless Truth, a causal framework for proxy labels in human algorithm decision making. Predictive models deployed in real world decision making domains often target labels that imperfectly reflect human decision makers' actual goals. For example, the toxicity labels targeted by content moderation models reflect the subjective and context dependent opinion of the person who annotated the example as toxic or non toxic. Similarly, models used to support social workers often predict the risk that a child will be removed from their home within 2 years. Yet, social workers themselves have reported that this differs from their own goals of assessing immediate threats to child safety. Additionally, one widely deployed clinical decision support tool identified high risk patients by predicting the dollar cost of their hospital stay. However, the cost of medical care is an imperfect proxy for medical need because many patients might have artificially low costs due to lack of insurance or other discriminatory factors. This is a key challenge because models targeting imperfect labels can introduce damaging downstream impacts. For instance, the clinical decision support algorithm just discussed, which was deployed throughout the United States, resulted in 28% fewer Black patients receiving the additional care that they needed as compared to similarly sick white patients. This example, and the many others which we cite in our paper, underscore that a predictive model targeting the wrong outcome is unlikely to help a human make the right decision. However, research studying human AI decision making often overlooks these critical challenges by assuming that models target ground truth labels. For instance, consider two emerging lines of human AI decision research. One growing body of research conducts experimental studies examining how behavioral interventions such as explanations influence human trust and reliance patterns and the formation of mental models as people used ML-based systems. A second body of research examines modeling techniques for accounting for the limitations of human judgment, such as deferral-based learning. However, both lines of literature tend to operationalize good decision making as improvements to accuracy on proxy labels. As a result, current experiments and modeling approaches offer an incomplete understanding of human AI decision making in complex, real world model deployments, where proxy labels can be an imperfect measure of decision quality. Therefore, in this work, we develop a new conceptual framework that can help researchers from the fact community bridge the gap between complexities encountered in real world algorithmic decision support deployments and current research practices in the human AI decision making literature. In particular, we develop a framework for examining imperfect prediction targets in algorithmic decision support. Our framework leverages causal diagrams to examine the data generating process that gives rise to predictive model training datasets. In today's talk, I will show how this framework can help the fact community disentangle sources of statistical bias impacting proxy labels, articulate implicit modeling assumptions, and re-examine findings from prior human subjects' experimental studies in light of proxy validity related challenges. To develop our causal diagram, we reviewed a diverse set of real-world case studies, synthesized these into candidate causal diagrams, and then stress tested these by attempting to identify counterexamples. Throughout this process, we cross-referenced HCI and machine learning literature to surface unaddressed nuances, while also seeking active input from researchers with expertise in relevant related disciplines. I'll now introduce our framework using an example in which a model is being designed to help physicians predict heart attack related outcomes. In this setting, we have a physician decision that's being informed by an algorithm, such as which medicine to prescribe, as well as a model prediction. And together, these form a joint human model decision. The goal here is to predict a target outcome of biological heart attack, but instead we have access to a proxy label consisting of heart attack diagnosis and medical records. Diagnosis is an imperfect proxy because as many as 45% of heart attacks are silent and go undiagnosed. We can describe the relationship between the target and proxy outcomes via a measurement model. In this case, we also have access to administrative data that can be used as model features and unobserved information such as real-time test results, which are only available to physicians. We can describe the relationship between these nodes via connected edges. For instance, model features can influence both the model prediction and the human decision, while human-only features can only influence human decisions. We can extend this analysis to examine connections across all of the different variables, as detailed in our paper. While we've used heart attack prediction as a motivating example to introduce this diagram, this framework generalizes to many other real-world decision support tasks examined in the literature. And one key benefit of this causal diagram is that it can be used to disentangle sources of statistical bias impacting prediction targets. For instance, one commonly discussed challenge impacting proxy labels is outcome measurement error. And this occurs when the construct being predicted, such as creditworthiness, student learning, or disease status, is imperfectly operationalized by observed labels. For example, in criminal justice settings, rearrest is an imperfect proxy for recidivism risk because crimes can go unreported and defendants can be falsely arrested for crimes that they didn't commit. However, our causal graph also surfaces other statistical biases impacting proxy labels, and these can arise from edges connecting to the target and outcome proxy nodes in our causal diagram. For instance, treatment effects in selective labels occur when decisions being informed by an algorithm impact downstream outcomes. Treatment effects have been examined in the child welfare domain, where opening an investigation on allegations can change the likelihood of proxies, such as out-of-home placement and foster care. As detailed in our paper, unobserved confounding and selection bias can also impact target variables via additional paths in our causal diagram. Our framework also allows researchers to map algorithmic decision support tasks to relevant sources of statistical bias that apply in that setting. For example, when decisions impact downstream outcomes, the full set of modeling challenges I've just described are of concern. And this setting is relevant in many real-world modeling deployments, such as lending and criminal justice. However, when decisions do not impact outcomes, only measurement error is of concern. Tasks used in many online experimental studies, such as nutrition and house price prediction, fall under this category, and this may carry implications for the ecological validity of online studies, as discussed in our paper. In our work, we also show how this framework can help researchers and practitioners articulate proxy label modeling assumptions. We develop a measurement model taxonomy and apply this to a broad set of techniques proposed in prior literature. And while we won't have time to discuss this in detail today, we invite you to check out section 4 for details. A final application of our framework that we'll discuss involves how it can enable researchers conducting experimental human subject studies to examine proxy label related challenges more closely. In particular, we re-examined a comprehensive review of prior studies through the lens of our framework. Our review included studies published in premier HCI and machine learning venues, where our main criterion is that the study includes an experimental human subject study leveraging an ML-based predictive model, and 72 studies fit this criterion. For each study, we mapped the primary experimental evaluation to the corresponding nodes and edges in our causal diagram. For example, a study examining whether explanations lead to improved human prediction performance would map to the joint human algorithm decision-making region. A key finding of our analysis is that 92% of the 72 studies satisfying our criteria examine a narrow subregion of our causal diagram. Specifically, these studies examine joint human algorithm decision-making with model features and an outcome proxy. Yet, these works do not examine outcome measurement error, intervention effects, or human-only features in detail. However, a subset of the studies examined do provide an early yet incomplete window into other subregions, such as human-only features and outcome measurement error, while other areas remain largely unexplored. This current gap in our knowledge presents a pressing need to better understand the impacts of proxy labels in human AI decision-making. In our paper, we provide a detailed supplement in the appendix, mapping the design of several experimental studies to the corresponding region of our causal diagram. And we discuss how this exercise can be used to assess and improve the ecological validity of lab-based studies going forward. Thanks for your time today, and I look forward to your questions during roundtable discussion.